I just test it out and make sure it works.
I am going to text.
I have to test out the buttons just to make sure that it all works for the stream.
I'm gonna text you the YouTube link so you can share it with your people if you want anyone to watch. I don't know. Are you on Facebook?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, these influencers out here. I don't know where these influencers use, and I don't.
It is for like family.
I don't got you on TikTok or nothing, so I didn't. You know what I'm saying?
I stopped using my TikTok now because it just like it. Yeah, it gets addicting.
I get it. I be going
TikTok every night.
I be going down the rabbit hole. I'll be like, all right, it's time for bed, and I'll lay down and be like, oh, but let me check TikTok real quick. And then 3 hours later, I'm still staring at TikTok. Like I'm just like, am I okay? What is it?
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Huh?
I don't believe that.
You don't believe what?
You being on TikTok for 3 hours and not falling asleep. You play PlayStation. You sit
it'd be like
waiting
1 hour.
and you fall asleep on the mic.
See, but the difference is I'm waiting. On TikTok, if I want to see a new video, I gotta be paying attention.
Yes.
Yeah, but low key too, I be watching, and if it's a longer content video when I'm tired, if it's like one of those minute-long joints, I'll be like, all right, and then I'll fall asleep real quick, and I wake back up, and I'm like, I didn't even watch that, and I'll just rewatch it again, and then go to the next one, and stay awake for another 3.5 minutes. So that's typically how it goes. I should probably share this on Facebook. Channy, share the video on Facebook, please.
Oh my god!
It just came up on. As soon as I figure out where this video went, we can start. I just want to make sure to get it shared. Oh, it's already right there. I'm gonna. Hey. Dwayne is watching. Hello. As soon as I figure out where this video went, we can start. Stop. I'm hearing myself echo. Stop. Okay.
There he is.
Hey. Hey, Dwayne. ¿Cómo está?
Hi.
Alyssia, name that family member. Hey, Dwayne. Alyssia.
Have you had Julio on here?
No. That's a. Come on now.
You should. No. That would be a fun episode.
We will see him at the wedding. That'll be.
That'll be a fun episode right there.
Annie, I can't wait for you to be my family, bro. You're gonna be in heaven.
I'm gonna have a sign that says "Don't talk to me."
I'm telling everybody you speak nothing but Spanish. That you don't speak English.
There you go.
Please. No, but see, my dad's family, you're good with that. But mom's family, you're out of luck, my boy.
Well, actually, I've genuinely been spending about 20-30 minutes every day learning Korean. So just say I've been speaking Korean. I only speak Korean, even though like I'm nowhere right now. I'm just learning the vocabulary.
Because my grandfather might act like he knows Korean, so.
Hey, one of those.
He knows anything, so. Yeah, I mean, you remember on there, right? Yeah, he knows it all. So he might hit you with some Korean. You never know who he knows.
I'm still in the alphabet right now. I ain't making that far.
I guarantee you, he knows at least at one of his. He's an accountant in New York. I guarantee you, one of his clients got to be Korean. So you're SOL there, my boy. What'd you say, Alyssia?
Surprise.
Yes. All right, everybody ready to get started?
I guess.
Let's do this. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of What is that sound?
I have a lot of background noise, so but nothing's loud, so I don't know what you're specifying.
It's Ruby. It's the background noise, whatever that is.
It's just the TV over here. Ruby's in the kitchen, but the TV's right there.
Well, why the TV? Cut the TV off, bro. Like,
you tell me,
Are you watching it? Are you watching TV?
You don't like T-Mom?
Bro, you are a trip, Channy. I like went to go start, and I'm like hearing. So I thought somebody was talking to me, and I just couldn't hear.
I know. I like while my phone was going off, I was like, nothing's open.
Like, is somebody on the phone right now? Like, who's talking? Are you?
I always got something playing.
See, look at you.
I was watching something.
You can't watch.
Yo, I can't stand you. This is why I tell you I can't stand you. All right. Are you ready now, Channy? You good? You got the TV?
That's why he was late, because he was watching TV.
Yeah.
No, I came here. I was taking my stuff off. I was making sure that I turned the TV on. I was eating.
Yeah, he had to make sure he caught his flicks. He'd been working all day long. He had to make sure he kept up on his stories. He got that Caso Cerrado one over there. He got to make sure he catches that. All right, let's try this again. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of AfroLatinos, your favorite weekly podcast with your co-host Aubyn
and your co-host Chandler.
And it's a very special episode, guys. We have the daughter of a former guest, my homie, my little homie, my cousin, Alyssia Graves, on the show with us tonight. Hello, Alyssia. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It is beyond a pleasure. Whoa, echoing. What is happening? Okay, it is beyond a pleasure to have you here, Alyssia. I'm very excited for this episode. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff in just a second. I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our audience so that they know who you are. But let me tell the audience kind of what the show is going to be about today. Of course, as always, during NBA playoff time, as has been the past couple weeks, we're going to recap. Some big stuff happened this weekend in NBA, so we're gonna start off talking a little bit about this man still watching TV with the.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I turn it off.
So we're gonna start talking about some NBA playoff news. Talk a little bit about my man LeBron, R.I.P. Big Dog. Got some stuff to talk about. The playoff. Okay, Jenny. Talk about some stuff with the playoffs. And then we're going to move on to a conversation that I think is really important. And the real reason that Alyssia is here, we're going to be talking tonight about race and womanhood in the field of sports and the field of fitness. And so, Alyssia, why don't you let our guests know who you are, where you come from, and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Alyssia Graves. I am from the DC metro area, grew up in Maryland and now currently live in DC. And I am a reporter for Athletes Unlimited. Athletes Unlimited is a women's professional sports league for softball, volleyball, and lacrosse. They just wrapped up their volleyball season. This summer, I will be helping with social content and posting for the lacrosse season that is taking place here in DC. And then I also do feature writing for them on their website and highlight some of the athletes within all their different sports. And so I do that. And then on this side, I am a strength and conditioning coach at 202 Strong, which is a gym that does barbell strength and HIIT and circuit training. And so I teach that, and also a little bit of personal training as well. And then through that, this year in January, I launched my fitness newsletter. It's called Active with Alyssia. And on there, I send out weekly newsletters with all different information. Sometimes it's home workouts. Sometimes it's workouts that you can do in the gym. I collab with people. So we do recipes. I do my favorite must-haves, talk about training shoes, a little bit of anything and everything to really give people the resources if they're interested in, learning more about fitness and don't know where to start, really giving them something to help them navigate whatever kind of fitness journey they're on, or just any health and wellness resources that they might be interested in. So, yeah.
Listen, Channy, you remember the episode on Tuesday of You Think You Know, when Bree was fact checking and the list kept going on and on. Every time she would give us a fact, they would just add on. I kind of felt like that when Alyssia started listening to us. I felt like it was never going to end. You know, I do this, and then I do this on top of that, and I got 65 other jobs that I do on top of that. Well, we're so happy that you could make time.
That is the tame version. That is very much the tame version because I hate explaining what I do. It is the worst because I'm like, what do you include? What do you not like?
You hear that flex? Y'all hear that flex? You know, that's I had to.
I just don't like
I had to dumb it down for the people because you know what I'm saying. I do too much. I had to.
That's a synopsis. What is that? What used to be that thing? Spark Notes.
Yeah, that's the Cliff Notes, the Spark Notes version. That is Alyssia Graves for dummies. That's what happened right there. Well, we're so happy that you can make time out of your very busy schedule to be here and to just have a good time with us on the podcast. So let's just jump in. I know basketball, Alyssia, might not be your niche per se when it comes to the sports world. What up, Eva?
Hello, my mother.
I know you spent some time in LA working some football stuff. So I know you had to have heard the news. For the first time in his career, LeBron James out of the playoffs in the first round. And this is a question for anyone. Alyssia, feel free to jump in the conversation if you feel so inclined. Channy, how do you feel LeBron's legacy is affected by this loss? Is it? I know. Just let me ask. I gotta ask the question because I know somebody in the comments talking trash on it. So, does this loss affect his GOAT status in your eyes? Channy, jump in.
No. Why? Because Michael Jordan lost in the first round, like 3 times. He couldn't get past Larry Bird.
Couldn't be Bird. Couldn't be Pippen. Or not Pippen. The Pistons.
What did she say?
Yeah, she dragged me. She couldn't be the bad boy.
It doesn't stop.
So he's still the GOAT to you, Channy?
He's still a GOAT. He's LeBron James. He might have lost the first round, but Dennis Schroeder and KCP both had 0 points in a whole game. How do you play 20-some minutes and scores nothing?
Yeah.
Do nothing.
Yeah.
That's like
more effort to not be able.
It's like you have to try to not score. Like in football, right? So this team is up, like they're up by a touchdown, right? The running back takes off and he breaks for a 70-yard run, but there's still time on the clock. So instead of scoring, they stop and they slide at the 1-yard line, so they still have to waste time.
Yeah,
I mean that's you have to try not to score in the game of basketball. Like if you have you're getting paid way too much money to score 0 points in the game. I understand if you're in garbage time, you know what I'm saying, and you're in the last couple minutes, and you're not supposed to score. But 20 some odd minutes, that's half of an NBA game, and you didn't score at all. Like, hello. Look at that. My boy Otis knows what's up. Otis
says, too bad nobody cares what Otis says.
Okay, Channy.
Thank you.
Your mom's a LeBron hater? Is she okay?
Yeah, she a LeBron hater.
Okay, Eva, I had so much faith in you.
We Celtics. We don't do Lakers. We don't follow my dad. We're the Celtics.
Yeah, but come on, it's LeBron. That's different. So
I have respect. My mom's just Celtics.
I get it. I mean, I guess.
At least, do
you have any opinions about LeBron and his GOAT status?
No. Well, yeah, I do. But what I mean by no is that, like, it's just a ridiculous conversation that when we get to this point with LeBron, because it's just like LeBron is, and you ask, is he the GOAT or is he a GOAT? LeBron is a GOAT. It's the same way that Tom Brady is a GOAT.
Nah,
like,
Tom Brady. Come on now.
Of their fields, like in the NFL and the NBA, like they are the best of the best. But it really is like, I always have this conversation. It's just different times of play and different generations. But that doesn't erase because we're in a different time and like LeBron has been playing for how long? Like we're in a different time where some of the best that are going to be like what we look at LeBron now in 10 years, like look at Kevin Durant, like look at some of these other people, Like, it doesn't erase all his other achievements as well. Tom Brady. Yeah, I don't like Tom Brady either, but you just gotta respect
I'm
him.
out. Yeah, y'all have a great time. Y'all can have a great time together.
But whatever that comment. But I don't think, we're just in a different era of plug-in. You just have some great people. Like, look at Devin Booker. Like, look at these people. Like, the new age of basketball is talented. You can't diminish that either, but that doesn't erase everything LeBron has done. We're in a new day and age, and it makes the game fun. I don't want to see them win all the time. Like, it gets old. Like, let's see.
Nah, you never get tired of watching your favorite player win. I don't think.
Well, it's your favorite player. That's the problem.
That's true. That's the point. I'm just saying, for some of us, yeah.
I always bring up the fact that so Aubyn said this, and he says, like, we've talked about Kobe being like his moves. He watched Jordan growing up, and he learned his moves or whatever, and then became Kobe. Jason Tatum, if you see his moves a lot, they mimic Kobe Bryant a lot. So hoopers, like they play fantastic, but it's like
Jason Tatum. Like, we're just in good basketball right now.
Exactly, but not everybody's stuck on Michael Jordan still the GOAT. Like, just But
you know what I'm saying?
Well,
Aubyn said, "No one. I've never seen anyone that looks like they played like LeBron. Everyone's he played like Kobe, he played like Jordan, but I've never seen anyone that's like he. First of all, you spelled it wrong.
Hey, she don't speak English, bro. It's all right.
But yeah, no one can like copy what LeBron does.
It's true. Everybody, Kobe is a spitting image of Jordan. A lot of players will model their game after Jordan, after Kobe, but everyone, I can't even name a single player who models their game after LeBron because you simply can't. He's too big. Okay, Channy, never that. He's too big. He's too talented. He can do too much. His game is unmatched. So you just can't compare him to a lot of other people.
No, that's a valid argument, but he's still a GOAT.
He's the GOAT, but we're going to move on to the next topic. This is the last NBA playoff topic that we're going to cover. And Alyssia, you actually segued pretty well into it. You mentioned we're in a new age of basketball, right? These new stars are taking over. We're seeing a lot of new players. Devin Booker coming out and dropping 22 points in the first quarter of the game against the Lakers. You got Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Jason Tatum. All these players playing outstanding basketball, playing out of their minds. And I saw this on, I think it was on Twitter the other day. Channy, do you remember on draft day, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago right now, that there was a trade that happened in the NBA on draft day?
Yes, yeah.
Luka Doncic and Trae Young were not actually drafted to the Mavericks and the Hawks, respectively.
Yeah.
Trae Young was drafted to the Mavericks. Luka Doncic was drafted to the Hawks, and there was that game day trade. And it says that the trade on draft night for those two players has to be the most balanced trade for both teams in NBA history. So my question to you is, do you think that the Hawks would be as good as they are right now with Doncic, or do you think that Trae Young was the better choice? Who was the better fit for each team? If they were in opposite positions, would their teams be doing as well? No, Luka plays by himself. Luka, you can't. I don't know if you can compare him to LeBron. He's similar in a lot of things, but
Luka plays like Luka.
Luka's a different breed. So anyway, do you think that the trade, was a good thing inevitably, or do you think that one of them may have more success if they would have stayed with their draft night team?
No, I think it would have been different because, like, picture Luka in the Hawks.
He would have looked awful. I just want to say it's the uniform.
The blue suits him. Like,
it's just something about
uniform. Like, it looks like that was made for. It looks like the team was made for him.
You're absolutely right, because looking at this picture, they look really stupid wearing that. I'm gonna pull it up on the screen here in just a second, but they look really stupid just the way that they are wearing the wrong hats. Like, it's just like it feels gross. You see something that's like you cringe.
Right.
That's how I feel. It just does not feel right.
But that's why I don't think that they would have been what they were had they been on those teams, because I also think part of how you play is your like happiness within an organization and where you feel most supported. And I think both of them are in places where they are built to thrive and succeed and are like leading men, that I couldn't see that atmosphere being created in the opposite cities for them. Like, I feel like their cities and how they're playing like is really playing a big role in their success right now.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, they play how they play now because of what team they are in. Like Trae Young's just shooting bombs because like he needs to. Who else is going to do it? If he would have went to a Mavs, like, you know, I mean, they don't have like shooters, but like someone else can do it, and like he just wouldn't play the same because he wouldn't have need to like step up like a lot in order to like, I guess in a way he has to step up, but just not like because like Lucas steps up, but he's just different, and I don't think his step up would have been as strong in the Hawks than it is in the Mavs.
So weird.
It just looks wrong. Also, I'm going to say this, and this is the last thing we'll say about the topic, and we'll move on to the point of this. Can we just Trae Young need a new barber, or he just got to let it go. He looked like a lollipop dropped in the dirt. You see all the lint on the. What's wrong with his hair? Who lets him? So who let my man look?
Too much money to be looking the way he does. It really does.
That's what I'm saying. He looks like LeBron. Get that new hairline like LeBron. Do something better because his
hair doesn't even look like it's done. Like he looks like he woke up. Like, and his bed is crazy. He's like, that looks great. Let's go. Like,
you see the dust bunnies in the corner. He looks like he just goes and picks up dust bunnies and is like, all right, that's good. Like,
like the Gerber baby pictures though, like the Gerber pictures.
Yeah,
those.
I saw one.
But have you seen
just like him?
Picture? Every year, the NBA always releases pictures of like the stars when they were younger.
Yeah,
he looked like that as a kid, and that's the real shame. Like Dwayne said, gotta let it go, my boy. Got to see it through, my boy. You gotta let that go because it just.
But they have like procedures now that they can fill your hair. Like he has money. Like that's the thing.
He makes too much money to look like that. Period.
You don't have an excuse. Like they'll like implant like hairs in there. Or something.
He didn't even need that. I think he can. If they just like braid it, they do something with that hair. It could look better. Like, put water on it. I'm sure water will do something.
He gotta figure out where LeBron went because wherever LeBron went. And it got hit because LeBron's hairline was, you know what I'm saying, it was walking back. He took off that headband and it started walking back and back and back. and now he's got more hair than I do.
At one point, he was bald. Like LeBron was actually bald at one point.
And he got it all back. He needs that type of money. I know he hasn't quite got it yet. He don't have LeBron type money yet because LeBron is a mogul. But he got money. I know he got money. So, Channy, For Halloween this year, can you be Trae Young?
I just need to. I literally to be Trae Young. I just need to go like that, or like not do my hair all day.
It'd be great.
Just wake up and just be like, "Wow, no water."
I might buy you a Hawks jersey for your birthday this year, just so you can do it. All right, let's get started with the actual point of this episode today. Alyssia, thank you again for joining and for sharing your experiences with us. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is where did your interest in sports come from? You clearly work in the sports field because you know more about basketball and sports than probably most females that I have encountered in my lifetime. So where does your love of sports come from, and where did you find that interest for you?
Yeah, it was just always on in our house. Like, you know that. Like, my dad always watches all we know. And so it's like when you grow up with that, you don't know any different. And I knew from like a young age, I was very good at class presentations and like getting up and speaking in front of people when it was things that I cared about. Like obviously I don't like just public speaking if it's not something that I am passionate and feel good about getting up in front of people and talking about, but I was very comfortable with those things and did things like dance and cheer. I like wasn't afraid to get up and perform in front of people if I really enjoyed what I was doing. And sports is one of those things. I never wanted to be a news anchor or anything like that because, you know, every time I do turn on the news, I can probably last like maybe 5 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, let's turn this off. It's draining. Whereas like sports brings people together. It's fun, like to get to talk about, not that sports doesn't have its moments. Like when the Kobe stuff happened, I wasn't at work that day, but the day that I had to go back into work, that was very heavy. Like that, those are days where it's not easy. But you know, the camaraderie that sports brings and happiness and joy that you see on people's faces, like those experiences make it so fun. And I wanted to do something that was fun, you know, even if it's not the ideal 9 to 5 or whatever it may be. Like you work in this industry, you know, you sacrifice holidays, you sacrifice weekends, you work weird hours. A lot of the times when I was working in production, I worked on evening side. So you work from 3, and if a game goes into overtime, you might not leave till midnight or 1. But that's the reality of it. But it's fun. Like the experience that games do go into overtime, you can't say that it's not like tuned in and like plugged and like having fun with it. So that's where I really that's all I've kind of known. And being able to like having a passion for just sharing people's stories and getting up and speaking in front of people drew my attention to kind of the journalism side of it.
And so that took you from high school and your experiences there and falling in love with sports. That took you, I mean, I know where that took you, but can you talk a little bit about your decisions in college and how you decided to further that career path once you figured out exactly what you wanted to do, and then where that led you post-graduation?
Yeah, so I went to Ohio State. My entire life, I thought I was going to Penn State, and then I visited Penn State and did not like it.
Tragic. I mean, I'm not a Penn State fan, so I don't care, but you know.
I ruled that one out real quick. It just wasn't the place for me. So I was like, all right, let's sit down. What are some other places that have good sports programs that I would want to go to? And Ohio State for a long time seemed out of reach for me, which is why I didn't seem to want to go there for a while. And then I was like, got nothing to lose, and they have one of the biggest football programs. So then once I did visit the school and I got it in and everything, I decided, like, why not take the opportunity and see how I can grow there with what they have to offer. So their journalism school at Ohio State is very print focused, which I tell people I'm grateful for, because I had to spend a lot of time writing and doing like game stories and long form stories and feature stories and that stuff to graduate. But it provides you with the foundation that you need to be on camera. And if you can tell someone's stories through writing, then being able to do it on TV where you get pictures and videos and all the extra fun stuff that makes everything look cool, it's way easier. So there, you know, I took a lot of classes that centered in sports, like just learning the history of sports all the way back to like the 1920s and crazy stuff, and like doing those kinds of things, and then taking opportunities to do a sports media class where it teaches you all the different jobs that are available in sports, which I think is really cool because people look at this industry and think there's only like very specific roles, but there's a lot of people that make games work and TV work and all that fun stuff that we get to see. So because of that, like I learned about that and got to listen to speakers. And then my last year there, I applied for a student television station to be the assistant sports director, and I got it. And so that presented me with the opportunity to spend the season covering Ohio State football and traveling to all the away games to do that. And then postseason, I did men's and women's basketball, but then I started to primarily focus on women's basketball. So then I got to go to the Big Ten women's tournament and cover them there. And the Ohio State team won that year when I was there. So that was cool. And then after, we did spring football before I graduated. So I got some really, really cool experiences because of the connections and the platform that Ohio State has that really allowed me to try things in the areas that I was interested, which was being on camera, but also writing. But then experiences to, I learned how to shoot games while I was there on my camera, and shoot football games, shoot basketball games, like, and take pictures, something that, was so out of my realm, but I got to learn that. I'm not a master at it by any means, but like, you get to try things that you wouldn't expect. So that's kind of like my journey in college and next, where it's kind of provided me with the foundations to the opportunities that I've had after that.
Well, like your list of things that you've been able to do just continually grows as the episode goes on, and it's no surprise why you gave us the Alyssia Graves for Dummies at the beginning, because you could probably talk about all of your accomplishments and things that you've done for the next 3 hours. And I have to ask, and I'm sure you get this a lot, but for the audience, we got to ask the question: while you were covering the Ohio State Buckeyes football program, who were you most excited to cover? Did you meet any of the athletes, any of the stars of the program, anyone that's made it to the NFL that you might have talked to, or that you ate lunch with in the cafeteria? Or I'm sure there's 8 cafeterias at Ohio State, but what are those experiences? Any fun experiences at the university level and on that collegiate program that you want to share?
I got to talk to all of them. I had very when you yeah.
Just
I was best friends with Dwayne Haskins. Me and him, we had breakfast together every Tuesday.
I talked to Barry. It's fine. He was cool, whatever.
I have a couple small side stories. I will say, when I got to cover the Ohio State football team, I had access to. I went to every post-game interview. I had locker room access, post games, press conference. I went to every Urban Meyer press conference during the week. I got to be with, if ESPN there was covering a big game, I was sitting next to those same people. So that's an opportunity that the school allowed me to do at a very young age that I'm forever grateful for. So I know when people are like, "Did you know this or that?" Yeah, like, I have it's all on my YouTube. You can go look at our stuff, go on my website. It's all on there. But no, I have some side stories of JT Barrett, of course. We all know who that is. If you watch Ohio State football, obviously. And Ohio State, your classes can be, I was in classes of 400 people at times. And then
what?
Big halls, just 400 people. Yeah, it's crazy. And then you get in these specialized classes once you get in your major, which are a lot smaller. So it can be anywhere from 20 to 30 people. Some people still probably think that's big if they go to really small schools. So I'm just but for us, then that's so intimate. And so I was in a women's studies class for women in films dating back to early 1920s all the way to present time. Most random class, but I needed it to graduate. It was one of the electives. I was cool. And it's a very small class, and we get in there, and the teacher thinks about the syllabus, and we're she's pass it back. And I turn back, and JT's sitting right behind me in this class. So I hand him his syllabus, and then I turn back around, and I go, "I don't think anyone knows that he's in here right now. No one's really paid attention." But then the teacher goes, "Everyone's going to have to introduce themselves." And I was now the attention is about to go to him and the fact that he's in here. So we get to me. I introduce my name, and then he stands up and is like, "Hi, I'm JT Barrett." Like, obviously everyone knows who he is and like looks, but it was really cool because he participated in all the conversations and was like very involved in the class. And like, luckily it was a class that, you know, it wasn't everybody just like focusing on him. Like everyone treated him with the utmost respect or whatever. And the teacher too, and like didn't treat him like he was any different than the rest of us. Which I think they all deserve that. You know, they have like being at Ohio State specifically, and there's weeks where all those big networks are there. I was like in the background of a Big Ten feature for Ohio State once when I was covering them, because there's like all these cameras and stuff. And so they're like, when they're in school and just being themselves and like living their life, I think because they're on this big stage, they deserve to have that respect outside of it. So it's really cool to see him get that he deserves, because, you know, they have just people critiquing them, tweeting about them, criticizing them at any given moment, and every little thing that they do, forgetting that they don't even get paid. Like, this is college. Like, they're not making any money. And if you hear some of their stories, like, you know, besides what the school does provide them with, like, some of them don't have any money, and like they're just trying to survive out here and figure out what their next move is. And that's so important to give them like that grace and respect outside of the sport.
It's a good point. It's a good word. But I am going to let you flex a little bit. You know, I was on AlyssiaGraves.com. I'm just, you know, I'm doing my research, right?
AlyssiaGraves.com.
And
I did my research already. I
remember this happening, but we're not going to let you sit up here on this show and not talk about your experience right here with the wonderful Jemele Hill. Can you just tell us what it was like to meet and you know, your experiences with Jemele Hill? What was this interview about? As I know, a lot of what she covers has a lot to do with what we're talking about: womanhood in the media, race in the media, as a Black television reporter formerly at ESPN. So what was this interview like for you, your experience, that, you know, that type of thing? Just go ahead and flex on us a little bit more.
Oh my God, I can't even flex on this because I was making a reel for my new job, which a reel is when like you're a reporter, you put together all your favorite clips. And I'm like going through all my old interviews, and I was like, oh my God, I am like cringing at my old self. In that moment, everyone thought it was the best interview I've ever done. And I'm like, oh my God, I've changed so much. You grow so much. But that's just the industry that I'm in. That was really cool. I actually so I saw that she was coming to our school, and I saw the flyer for it. And I was like, I knew that based off what we do, we can request interviews with our guest speakers that come. But by the time I saw it, it was super last minute. So I reached out to every single person that I knew that could possibly help me with this. And at like first thing, the day of that talk that she was doing at our school, I get an email at 7 a.m. I didn't even tell the sports director, James, who's in that picture with me, I didn't even tell him I was requesting to do this interview. I just did it on my own. And so I get an email that we got approved to do it, and we had to be doing it at this room. And I text him, I'm like, we're interviewing Jemele Hill today. Like, we need to like prep right now. So he was like, we didn't even know what to do. So he's like, okay. So he like drafts up all our questions. I had to run to the store because I was like, I need a new dress. Like, I need to like be like perfect, do my hair. Like, we are running around the city of Columbus right now trying to get everything together. So then like we go to our office, make sure we have our questions and everything down, and then like lug all our stuff to the student center where she was talking. And I remember we were sitting in the chairs and getting the cameras and everything set up, and sent a helper with us to help do the interview. And he goes, what do you think she's going to think when she walks in and realizes 2 Black student journalists are interviewing her? And I was like, she probably would never expect this. It was a time that you didn't think, like, it wasn't normal to walk in a room and like have that. So it was like really cool that we got to do that together. and then interview her. And it was on the edge of a time. It was a very sensitive time in the media about Kaepernick and just a lot of things. And we asked her about it and her getting suspended and her dealing with that. And she answered it. And she was very honest. And I respect her so much for that. I respect everything she does. So that's not even a question. But it was hard as student journalists navigating how we could bring those topics up. Luckily, I was in a space and had an advisor that supported our decisions to talk about these things at a time where it wasn't as normalized as it is now. Mm-hmm. But she was awesome. I look back on myself and I'm like, but that's a cool experience. And you know, she like Instagrammed and tweeted at me after all that, and she's awesome. So yeah, I listen to her podcast now, and she's the same person she was then and has always stayed true to herself. And that's the coolest thing about her.
That's what's up. And I think that kind of naturally segues into the next point. Not only as a female in a predominantly male dominated industry, but also as a Black female in a predominantly white industry, at least from the analyst perspective, maybe not so much the players, as we know many of the majority of the major sports in the United States, the majority of those athletes, at least in NFL and the NBA, are people of color. So as a woman and as a Black woman specifically, how do you find yourself navigating the waters of a male and a white dominated industry in terms of, you know, being a reporter? Who are your the people that you look up to the most, the people that inspire you the most? And have you had any experiences where you feel like, because you were a woman or because you were Black or the combination of both, that something did not go the way you expected it to go because of who you were? I know there's a lot of questions all in one, but that's how my journalistic expertise works. So
yeah, that wouldn't fly at anything I do, but I understand what you're saying. Luckily, I've trained enough I got all of that. But yeah, navigating it in college, it was really hard. I actually had this conversation with someone who's a student at USC earlier today, and I was talking to her about it. And like in college, especially, the same way that the players are all fighting for their dreams and to hopefully make it to the NFL out of one in however many, it's the same way in the sports industry. Like, it is tough. It is cutthroat. A lot of times it takes years before you find a full-time position in this, in a secured position. A lot of times people are freelancers and have their own other stuff because it is not easy to navigate. Even the biggest people that people probably look up to and see don't even realize like what half the stuff that these people had to go through to get where they are. So like when I was at Ohio State, there were a lot of things that I was very passionate about and subjects I was passionate about that I could not tweet out or put on my social media because a lot of my following was following me to get updates about Ohio State football. And, you know, then it can draw a fine line. And if you cross certain lines, you lose your credentials. And so I never wanted to lose my access to covering. And then I think like when I was at the Sparks is when I definitely got more comfortable having conversations because I was directly in a place where you see the disparities firsthand in women's and men's sports. And you could tell that everybody in there was frustrated with how the WNBA is treated. And so you can have more open and honest conversations about that. And I think after that, I started really being able to like find my voice. And now, like anybody that knows me knows I don't care. Like, I literally don't care. I put anything, like, I just don't tolerate it anymore, and I'm very vocal on all my platforms. And the reason that is, and I don't shy away from it, is because one, conversations about this intertwine in sports. Sports is not separate from it's not separate from pop culture. It's not separate from politics. It's not separate from anything else. So it's a lot more normalized now. But also, if an organization or a network looks at my social media and they don't want to work with me because of something that I've spoken up about, I definitely don't want to work for them. Like,
Right.
they can save it. So I want the people that, you know, support me. Those are the people I want to create content for. And AU is that league. AU, I was having this conversation, built their foundation on uplifting women, creating a sustainable league that women can get paid in, addressing issues of social justice and human rights. And that was the foundation from when they built it, was to give their athletes a sustainable league and a platform to use their voice openly about anything that they were passionate about. And because of that, everyone that works within that organization as well, and the players, feel supported and have a voice and a choice. When they picked their locations of where they were going to play, they allowed athletes to travel and look at the locations too, to make sure they were happy with where they were playing and what they were doing. And so there are teams, networks, and organizations out there that are supportive of these things and have these conversations. And that's why I'm like navigating it now. There's really not much navigating for me anymore. It was hard in the beginning, but I know that there's rooms and opportunities to feel supported in this industry. But on the other hand, you know, like, the issues are still there with how women are treated, how race comes into play too. At Ohio State, like I said, so I was the only Black woman that covered the team. I was one of the only women that traveled to every single away game. So there were sometimes that I was the only woman at away games.
Wow.
And my colleague James was the only Black man covering the team, and everybody else was white. So it was hard. Like, James, at least for him, a lot of people still respected him because he was a man. So he's never played football ever, but I'm not discrediting. I love James, but I'm saying he never played football, but they're going to respect him because at the end of the day, he's a guy. He understands sports.
Sure.
Obviously, me and him are in the same boat. Both of us never played football before, but we can both cover the team and be cool, like, and good at it. Like, that doesn't change anything. But for me, there was one photographer from another station who I really, really enjoyed, and he was great to me and taught me so much. But otherwise, everyone else.
That's my fault. I clicked something on my mouse thing. So.
Yeah. No, and yeah, everyone else, pretty much no one talked to me besides the people that I worked with. And it was, I'm not going to say it was fine. It was never fine, but you just accept it and you understand, you know, the reasons why it's that way. The first time that someone from another organization or like news station acknowledged me, we were at the NFL Combine, and I was sitting there and I was editing videos, and I had written, while I was at school, as my capstone project to graduate, I had written a big story that broke and got a lot of attention. And basically the story was, I spent 9 months pretty much writing this story about how Ohio State was, as a university, skewing the perception of diversity at the university. And they were saying that diversity was increasing Yet the number of Black male students at the university was staying stagnant. So their message that they were putting out by numbers was not correct. They were at 2.6% of the university, 2.6. And I did the number of athletes and all that good stuff. So it was a really big story. Obviously, when it broke, I I got a lot of responses, a lot of positive responses and a lot of negative responses. And that was right before we left for the combine. And I was sitting in the room, and a writer for that I've been spending the whole season with came up to me and finally said, "Hey, like, you wrote a really good story." And that was the first time. And I was like, it shouldn't take for me to break something so big and get all this attention for someone to acknowledge me. Like, someone should have trusted from the beginning I was in there because I knew what I was doing.
Sure.
But that was the thing. It's like, you have to prove yourself. And that wasn't even a sports story. That was a news story that I wrote. Yes, sports was in it, but it's like the lengths I had to go to finally get respect from people that I had spent the whole season with was crazy. And that still happens now. That happens in every new space that probably a woman goes into sports, is like just having to do everything you can to prove that you're meant to be there. But like, you don't question for a second if a guy walks into your office that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, you already assume that he does, which, mind you, I've worked in a lot of spaces where a lot of people are not qualified to be in there. And somehow they get in there. I don't know how, but
well, so, we know how. It's
how.
Yeah. Grandpa Jim, you know what I'm saying? He was up in there 6 years ago. Yeah. Right.
I've had producers mess up my entire work and my entire shows that I've worked on. And that didn't come back on me not doing my job right. But it always comes back on like women being questioned about their ability to do their job. But if a man walks into a sports space, we don't even sit there and ask them who was the starting defensive back for the Chicago Bears in 1938 to figure out if they know what they're doing, because that's literally like it's the wildest questions you get, like, over like.
So who won Super Bowl #1? And how many yards did Brett Favre, who was not playing, how many yards did Brett Favre throw for? How many touchdowns did he score? And what's his middle name?
And they pick the most random years, like 1962. Like, can you tell me? Do you know? Like, if I get it right, can you?
Yeah. When Dr. Naismith was out there making the rules of basketball, who was his college girlfriend? And how much money did she make at her first job? Like,
yeah, like I just wrote a story like a couple months ago, and it was the history of lacrosse. And a lot of people don't even know that like lacrosse started with Native American roots. And like that dates back to so many years. You can't tell me that every man that covers and plays in the sport of lacrosse knows that. Like, you just can't tell me that but we do our research and we do it so we can cover these teams. But like it's just crazy how women are questioned compared to men. Like, I hate the argument that like, oh, but women don't play the sport of football, because you guys, like, it is not, there's not a system put in place for women to succeed. There's women that want to. There's probably women that could. Like,
right.
But look how you treat these other leagues, like the WNBA. Like, where the systems put in place were never built for women to be able to like grow. So that's why everything stays stagnant. Like, you can't blame it on that. So I hate those arguments.
It's so interesting, and you said a lot of things that I want to call back to if I can remember them all. I should be taking notes. But this is so funny, Channy. This reminds me of that conversation that I don't know if you went back in that group chat the other day in the Madden League where that I got kicked out from. I'm not salty about it or anything, but I got kicked out of a Madden League just this last week.
Oh my god!
Well, so here's what happened. The commissioner of said league was on a power trip.
Who's the commissioner?
Some guy who started the league. I don't even know who he is. He's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing, which is evidenced by his idiotic rules that he started to make or tried to implement. And when called on, when called to the table on his idiocy, he decided to be petty and kick people out who were complaining, who were just talking about his stupid rules. But anyway, it's like in that conversation, I happened to say, like, this guy, his claim to fame in this league, this is just the stupidest thing in the world. So this is Madden. It's a video game, right? So his claim to fame is he's a 5-time Super Bowl champion in a video game. He does not play football in real life. He plays video games, but he's a 5-time champion. And that's like anytime someone would argue with him about anything, he's a 5-time champion. And that's pretty, like, I think he lives, sleeps, and breathes Madden. But like, it seemed like in another one of the leagues, he lost a game, right? So then, like, the next week, he comes in and he's talking and he's trying to make all these rule changes for next season. And it just seems like he was trying to change the rules every time he lost to make sure that he couldn't lose again. And that is, unfortunately, for many of us minorities, women, every time it seems like we're doing something to succeed or someone else does something great or we do something great, someone else is changing the rules for them to succeed because they don't want to see us win. Like you said, these sports were never designed for women and for minorities. I mean, if you think about the WNBA, or you look at the NCAA women's tournament and we see how they were treated compared to the men's tournament and how the men's tournament had this huge, 16,000 square feet of gym equipment, and then the girls pretty much went to Walmart and they picked up the 2-pound weights off the shelf and just threw them in a room and said, "Here you go." We see how the disparity between the men and the women. Why would a woman want to be in that position? Why would they want themselves to put themselves in that position if they know they're just going to be treated poorly and they're not going to get the respect that they deserve? So for a lot of these spaces, when everything is stacked against you, why would you want to? You know what I mean? Like, at some point, you just get tired of trying to fight. For a lot of people, you just get tired of trying to fight and tired of climbing. But it's the only way we're ever going to succeed.
Yeah.
If we just stop and we give up, unfortunately, while our white counterparts primarily do not have to face those uphill struggles that we do, they can give up and still end up on top somewhere. But if we give up, that's the end of our career. That's the end of whatever we were hoping to do. And so, unfortunately, a lot of people, I feel like, just get to that point where they don't see the point in succeeding or continuing in that because it's not for them, or they feel like it is not for them because the odds are stacked against them.
Yeah, no. And I was having this conversation with someone earlier, and my biggest thing that I bring up time and time again is sports is for everyone. Everyone. From any background, any disability, whatever you may be, sports is meant for everyone, and it should be, and everyone should have that access. And because of that, like my friend, she's biracial. In this conversation, like, she understands as a Black woman how tough it is to not always see people in the positions that you want to be in. But she was like, one of my friends is Asian, and she decided to not pursue this industry because she's like, there are no Asian women reporters covering sports. You can't have someone that looks like her. And that, like, makes me so sad because we need more voices. We need more Asian voices. We need more LGBTQ plus voices. We need all the voices. One of my good friends who I look up to so much, Janelle Keenan, she got hired by the Seattle Kraken, which is a new team.
NHL team.
And, she has a disability, and the conversations and the things that she's been able to bring about to not just the Kraken, because like I said, the Kraken is doing everything they need to do right now, building a team that is supporting all different communities. But the conversations that she's bringing up in the NHL, which is so, like, NHL has so many issues. Like, that's why I think not a lot of minority groups are, like, you know, compelled to, like, watch and be a part of hockey, because there's a lot going on there. But, like, seeing that, it's just like, you just need one at the moment. Just one to get in there and start those. And the more you can see that, then more people start to become hopeful. And that's why I say, like, when I get, like, frustrated or whatever it may be, I was just like, there's someone out there that needs to see me. Like, I don't want anybody to feel the way that I once did. And because I don't want anybody to go through that, then I need to keep going, because someone out there, it can be one person, I don't care. They need to see me to know that they can. And so you just need that one, like, and so to hear it, like, when she shared that story with me, I just, like, you know, like, I know from a woman, like, as a Black woman, but to, like, when I look back on it too, I'm like, oh, I couldn't imagine, like how she felt to not see anyone that looked like her in something that she wanted to do. So she felt like she couldn't succeed in this industry, because we need her. Like, we need to have her covering sports. We need to see women like her. So like I say, sports should not discriminate. It does not if we do not allow it to discriminate. And there's certain leagues and organizations that still do, and there's a long way to go. But overall, I want every single person to feel like there's a space and place for them in sports.
Yeah, and that's another great point. And it called back to several different topics in my mind. As you mentioned, the lack of Asian reporters covering sports. We also don't see a ton of Asian athletes. But again, if we don't see our athletes, or if we don't see ourselves represented in the fields that we desire to be in, we're never going to go out and search for those things, because we don't ever see anyone that looks like us to do it. And Channy and I have had this conversation on previous episodes of the podcast, you know, where for me as an educator, you know, my first Black teacher, being born and raised, well, not born, but raised in central Pennsylvania, my first Black teacher didn't come until I was a freshman in college.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people, you know, in my area, I am one of two Black, in my school district, I'm one of two Black educators in our district, in this entire district, which is a fairly large district, 4 elementary schools, you know, a middle school and a high school, and there are 2 Black educators in the entire district. And so for a lot of our kids, you know, they've never seen a Black educator before. They don't know what that looks like. And so for me, being able to be in that position is giving someone the opportunity to see that they can, you know, and that's what I love about my job. But it also, you know, we look at, specifically calling back to your point about Asians in the sports world, but even Jeremy Lin, I don't know if you remember this story from a couple months ago. You know, Jeremy Lin several years ago with the Knicks, you know, broke out of nowhere, became, you know, this whole Linsanity craze. And he became an internet phenomenon, and he was playing great basketball, and he was doing great. And he was a great representation, probably the best Asian player that we've seen in the NBA, or at least I shouldn't say Asian, because that's not accurate. I should say of Chinese descent probably is better appropriate for this situation, because there are, you know, as we look at Indian players, or Asia is such a big continent. There's so many players. To say Asian, there are definitely
the AAPI community.
Yes. Thank you. The Asian American Pacific Islander community. Thank you. You know, he became kind of an icon for those communities, right? Probably the best since Yao Ming, when Yao Ming retired, which was a long time ago. But even he has come out and said, as he was in the G League, that even now in 2021, 2020, even he is of receiving these negative words and people calling him, you know, Chinaman and all of these stereotypes. I'm not sure the verbiage that was actually used in his direction, but he's still experiencing these comments. And And it's so unfortunate because for now, for what was once an icon of greatness in this community and showing what can be, now we're seeing the aftermath, and we're seeing that these people, these communities are still not being respected for what they're doing. And it is so sad, because how easy is that then to discourage another AAPI youth from wanting to be, in the NBA, from wanting to follow their dreams of pursuing these sports. And it's so sad, because I don't think it's going to change. It's going to take a long time before.
It takes a long time. That's what people don't realize. I hate having this argument with people of not that sports players have to stick to just their job. First of all, I don't have to stick to my job doing what I'm doing. Nobody who works a 9 to 5 or does whatever, nobody else, but for whatever reason,
right,
since they are in this realm, they're the only human beings on this planet that only can talk about what they do for a living, which baffles me. But with that, there are so many stories about NFL players or NBA players of being racially profiled outside of when they're going home after a game, after they just played, after these people just cheered them on, they might not recognize who this person is out in public, and they get racially profiled,
right,
or have some kind of thing happen to them. And then it goes to show, once again, this is why they can't just stick to what they do, because outside of this, your job does not define you.
Right.
It's what they're good at. It's what they succeed and entertain us with. But that doesn't change the fact of who they are outside of this, that they have families, that they're human beings, they have feelings, they deal with the same things that the rest of us deal with, including the conversation about mental health. Don't get me started on Naomi Osaka.
That was my next topic.
Yeah.
That was literally the next. I have it written down.
That's the thing. It's just it's unfortunate that people think that because someone's a celebrity or because they make millions of dollars that they're not exempt from the same things. But when you hear these stories about what they go through, it shows you how close to home it actually is. And you need to remember that, they are human beings, and these things are very real to them. And they can't, they might look different and might be respected in a jersey, but when they walk out, they're Asian, they're Black, they're all these things, and they deal with the same things that we other humans deal with on a daily basis. And that's why it's so important for them to use their platforms to speak out, to kind of close that gap and show people yes, we do something really cool that we're good at, but we also, because we have many millions of people watching these games and seeing that, this is the perfect time to start these conversations and have them on that platform that we don't have. I don't have millions of followers. I can talk to my followers that I have and start those conversations within my personal community. They can do it on a bigger scale, and imagine how many lives they can change because of that.
Right. Absolutely. And I do want to just mention, because it was on my list of things, and I feel free again to share your thoughts as loudly as you would like. But I can't help but wonder if this had been, in her heyday. Thanks, Wyatt. In her heyday, if Maria Sharapova, when she was at the top of her class in the tennis community, if she had come out and said, she's Russian, had she come out and said, guys, I'm not going to do any press, would it have been received with the same vitriol that Naomi Osaka has received? Even if we look at Roger Federer, Roger Federer is a white man, as if he was at the top of the tennis community, the male tennis community, if he were to say, I'm not doing press conferences right now because of my mental health, I need to take a break from that, I just want to focus on playing tennis, would he have received the flack that Naomi Osaka has received, or when Serena Williams had her baby and she took that time away to have. There's so many questions as Chaney practices his front stroke. There's so many times when these specifically minority athletes don't get the same luxuries to just be people and exist as moms, as people, as their white counterparts do. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually called someone out on Instagram last week for the language that they used about Julio Jones, and I was so angry. And I private messaged them. I wasn't going to do it on a public platform, and they took it down and they listened to what I had to say, because at the end of the day, there's certain language and words that get used against Black athletes compared to white athletes. And this particular post used the word that it was asking about a poll about, with everything that's going down with him wanting to leave, is he abusing his power? Should he stay and suck it up because he gets to do this? And I was like, look, this is what we're not about to do today, is use this type of language, because this conversation and these questions about is it right or wrong only comes up when it's a Black player. Aaron Rodgers, everyone's making a joke out of this situation, left and right. It's a joke to everyone. But Absolutely. Now you're going to use this language and say that should he just suck it up because of the position that he's in? And, I didn't approach her like that, obviously, but I had a very honest saying, this language is dangerous in the way that you are addressing it, especially because this question only comes up when it's about Black athletes. And she took time to reflect and understood, and they did take the post down. I don't have a problem with the conversation, but we have to watch in the words that we use directed towards these people. And it's the same thing with Naomi Osaka. I love her for so many different reasons, but one of the reasons I love her is because she makes people uncomfortable, and I love that. She is changing the game at such a young age, and she's having her and her boyfriend, they make people uncomfortable because they're so unapologetically themselves. I love everything about that, because we need that. And it is so sad that it is coming up, especially in the conversation of mental health. And I think it is not fair to even think for 1 second that you get to criticize her about her decision to take care of herself and what she needs that's best for herself. She's a human being, and she's young at that, and she is navigating her life and has been thrown on a big stage at such a young age and is doing everything that she can. But at the end of the day, she's human, and she deserves the same grace that each and every one of us get to take time off, to get days for ourselves and do what we need to do. And so, it upsets me that part of it, it's hard because a lot of the questions that I get is from a journalist perspective. Well, they need to do their press and stuff. Yes, press is super important. Don't get me wrong. Part of the job that you sign up for is making sure that you do your interviews and talk. But part of that as a journalist, it is, and I take big responsibility in every person that I interview, especially my AU athletes, is creating an environment and space that they don't dread getting called to do an interview, that they feel comfortable sharing their story and enjoy and want to speak out about those things, and making sure that you're asking the right questions and respectful questions. Some of the questions that I hear post games that people ask, do you forget that they're human? Put yourself in that position for 1 second. As someone asks you about after this big loss and this, the way you're wording things and putting that out. Yes, you have to address those things, but there's a respectful way to do it. And I think if someone is crying out that they are drained from this and they need to step away from this, everybody else that's covering the sport needs to reflect and look back within themselves and realize what is the environment that we should be curating that our athletes feel supported and want to talk to the media, and that they can enjoy the sport that they love to do and feel like they openly can have these conversations. But clearly by the backlash, they're not creating that. And we've seen tennis has had such a bad history with how they treat Serena, that cartoon, everything. So it's nothing new, but I'm like, she is doing everything right, Naomi, by taking a moment for herself. Now it's everybody else's duty to sit back and reflect on themselves and realize what is going on in the sport that she is feeling this way, and how can we make the sport better so that especially Black women feel supported, especially one that is making this sport a lot of money right now.
Number 2 in the world.
Yeah, and it goes to show money isn't everything. And that's the thing. They try to put that on players. It's like, well, you have millions of dollars. Like, why aren't you happy? You get a house, you get this, a car. They're human. Like, you can have it all. And it shows that you still deal with issues like everyone else. And that makes people, like average people like us, feel more like comfortable about these things too. Like, she is having a very important conversation right now that needed to be brought up. And I think it goes to show once again that there is a humanity in sports, and we have to start recognizing that. And it's like, sports can be great to bring people together, but it also is an amazing platform to have very difficult and hard conversations, and then now create another beautiful space that people can feel encouraged and supported in.
Absolutely. And there's one comment that you had made earlier that I wrote down before we end and kind of wrap things up. That is, I think Channy and I have talked about this before, but it comes up anytime we talk about identity, anytime we talk about, finding your place in the world around you. But you mentioned that in the sports world, we often see language that is different in words and verbiage that is used towards Black or minority athletes than their white counterparts. And you mentioned, for example, Aaron Rodgers, people call him a diva. Maybe they say he's complaining, or maybe they just think he's joking or whatever. But they never disparage him or his character. But when Julio Jones says, I'm out of there and I'm not going to the Cowboys, thank God he's not going to Dallas. We just, that was a word from the Lord. I felt that right in here. When he does that, there's going to be certain language that's used towards him, which is different and often, very disparaging. It reminds me of those conversations, and I'm sure this is a conversation and probably something that you've heard, but those microaggressions that we hear so often and that are just so commonplace in our respective spaces. But it calls to mind specifically the microaggression that a Black person who does not use a lot of slang or does not speak with the traditional, I should say, African-American vernacular English is automatically deemed their favorite word articulate, right? You are so articulate. Listen, I'm an educated person. I know how to speak. Yes, I am articulate, but when John spoke and did exactly the same as me, your words towards John were not articulate. You gave him some other lauding praise for doing the exact same thing I did, but because of my skin color, you did not expect me to be able to say the things that I said and portray it the way that I did. And so all of a sudden, you're going to use this verbiage towards me when my counterpart did the exact same thing, the exact same way, but it was already expected of him. Right. Yes. So it just calls that to mind. And there's so many of those times that this stuff happens. And I'm sure as a journalist and as a reporter, you have had to deal with that a lot. I'm sure you've heard it more than once. How did you find yourself navigating through that? Did that come up in college and in your professional workplace, those comments, and what did you do?
Yeah, I still deal with microaggressions like every day. There's probably one side thing that someone says to me at all times. It could be at the grocery store or whatever. And like it, I was talking to another Black, like I said, I spoke to someone earlier today, and she's a Black woman in sports. She was telling me how her professor in 2021 said that for her on-camera class for broadcasting, that the way their hair was the first day of class is the way their hair should be for the rest of the school, like the semester. Now, I've never had it to that extent. Now, do I get comments about my hair all the time? Yes. But that is absolutely disgusting. But that goes to show, like, literally the microaggressions, because you only know he's only talking to particular people.
Sure.
You're addressing it to a class, but you know exactly who you're addressing it to. One, it's not your place to say anything about how someone's natural hair that grows out of their head can be styled. That is not okay by any means. It's no one's business. I always tell people, minding your business is free 99.
Amen. Free 99.
It doesn't cost you a thing to not worry about what someone else is doing. How they want to style their hair, good for them. Like that is on them. And so, you know, like I remember the days, because I always showed up for a long time on my first day at any new internship job with my hair straight, because that is what's considered, like your mom said, professional hair. And the day that I would decide that I'm not straightening my hair and show to work with curly hair, it is a scene. It is. Absolutely. Like, I'm like, at this point, do you want me to sign you an autograph? Do you want a picture? Like, we can do something. I didn't realize, but it's just like, those are the kinds of things. There's no really easy way to navigate it. It's recognizing when it happens and knowing ways to like check people on it and educate people on it and why that's not okay, and making sure that they don't repeat that to the next person. And just like being able to have open conversations. I think like I said, for the longest time, I just kept to myself and did what I thought was what I needed. Straight hair, my makeup a certain way, the way I dressed, everything, to like just keep everything good and go to work and not be bothered. But, you know, that's no fun that you can't be authentically yourself at all times. And we all deserve that in any space that we're in. So I think now recognizing that these are things and being comfortable, which is not always easy. Like I said, it's not like I've just got into a place where I've grown into not caring that I will willingly call someone out if that's not okay. But it took a while to get there. And same with this. Like, it's not always going to be easy to have those conversations, but I do know at times when it is hard of like, should I say something? Or how, like, or do I let it be? I know that if I speak up now, I prevent someone else from having to go through that. And I think that's always reassuring, that if we can just start educating in these small communities that we're in, and like one little conversation can really change everything. But, you know, I see it on TV all the time. It's why I say we need more Black voices in sports, because how, you know, the conversations, the headlines, the way you see things written, you know, sorry, there's like a little or something, you know, when it's not by a person of color, because of the conversations that they're having. And then you can see, you know, like, look at Emmanuel Acho and like what he's built and the conversations that he has. Like, it's so important. And I was telling someone earlier that I don't think a lot of people realize, when you look, and I've been able to study the history of sports in so many different ways, but like, look at sports now, look at like the WNBA jersey drop, and look at like the music, and look at everything that is being built like with social media and the content that is created, and realize like all of that is based off of like Black culture. Like, Black culture has such an influence in sports. And when it's trendy, everyone's on it. Everyone. Like, look at the Kardashians. They built a whole empire off of Black culture. Like, they're killing it because of Black culture. And it looks cool because it's the Kardashians. But then when, you know, like, when it's just everyday people, like those same things, then it's like those microaggressions. But like, understand that sports is influenced by that. Like, everything that we enjoy and the content that we take in is inspired by or taken by that. So like, we have to recognize, and a lot of sports are predominantly Black too. And it's not okay that in 2021 that we are not educating ourselves more on how to address these things. Oh.
So you may keep going. There you go. He came back.
Oh,
You can keep going. I'm still here.
There you go. I was like, oh. But yeah, that was actually like my end remark. It's like, we should just like, especially in these predominantly Black sports, but all around that, like, we should be educating ourselves on these things. I'm like, even, and I'm big on speaking about, I know I'm focusing right now as a Black woman on the Black community, but you know, I'm myself have learned to, I'm lucky to have a diverse group of friends and community around me that when certain issues, like that player that said an anti-Semitic slur, I have no clue what that word was. I've never heard it. No one in my life has ever used it.
Me either.
But it's important that I go to my Jewish friends too and understand what they're going through, so that if I do now hear or someone does that, I can check them too. And the same thing with the Asian hate that's been coming about and all these other things. Like, it is everyone's duty to make sure that we are educating ourselves on what other marginalized groups are going through and what in ways that we can support them. And I think as a journalist myself, as much as it's my job to cover these people and be impartial in a lot of situations, when it comes to human values and morals, I will never be impartial. Like, I will always stand by what is morally right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it is my duty to educate myself so I can cover them in the best way that they need to be represented. So I think, you know, people are always like, journalists need to be neutral and they need to do that. When it comes to human rights, it's not about that. Like, and it is actually more important that as a journalist, you really like understand who you're covering and the teams and the organization, so that you can really give their story like justice and be a resource for them, because I think that's our job.
Yeah, and I have about 30 more comments, but in the interest of everyone's time, and because it's getting a little late, and my computer is going to die and my charger's upstairs, looks like a perfect time to end the conversation. Alyssia, thank you so much for not only deciding to spend your time with us tonight, but also leaving us with so many words of wisdom and advice. And I cannot wait to say that for you to be on ESPN Sports Center, you know, hosting, and for me to say that's my cousin, and for me to give you just don't forget me when you make it big. That's all I ask. So thank you so much for joining us on tonight's episode of AfroLatinos. This has been amazing, and we hope that you will come back with us someday.
Yeah, most definitely. Thanks for having me on and thinking of me and letting me talk.
Hey, listen, we're all about amplifying. We are all about amplifying the marginalized voice, and that's what we're giving you tonight, the opportunity to share a voice that maybe sometimes would not be able to be heard. So we appreciate you, Alyssia.
I appreciate you too.
Thank you so much. This has been another episode of AfroLatinos. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram. Find us wherever digital podcasts can be found. We are just about everywhere. Yeah. We're getting that Instagram started. We're trying to make our name out here. We're trying to do some things.
We're still waiting on that TikTok, but it's gonna get there.
Yes. Whenever someone else wants to do that, Alyssia, if you want to be take over as TikTok manager, we can. We'll give you all the logins. We'll make it work. So make sure to check us out. Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you want to hear. You see us again Tuesday night for You Think You Know. We'll see you next Thursday for Juguemos, and next Saturday for the review of the new movie In the Heights. Spoiler alert. I'm going to let everybody know now If you've made it this far to the episode, next Saturday's episode is a review of this movie. It comes out Friday. If you do not see it by Saturday, please do not watch the episode because you will be sorely disappointed. We have a great guest on, a friend of the podcast, Seth Sponhouse, will be joining us next Saturday. So make sure you check out the movie and check us out next week. This has been another episode of AfroLatinos with your co-host Aubyn
and your co-host Chandler
and our guest Alyssia. Good night, everybody.
Night.